Members of the Personnel and Finance Committee are present. We will call the meeting to order. We have a quorum with everyone present. Is there any public comment for items that are not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into referrals, and I'll just kind of explain what's going to happen here for everybody. So the motion that's going to be before us regarding OA 52, which is the Huber fee, will be a motion to reconsider that item. If it is reconsidered and then postponed indefinitely, it will effectively kill that amendment and it will not advance to the board floor. It will not be part of the package considered on Monday and it will end. Assuming that that happens, we will then go back and reconsider the budget that we passed. We'll have to reconcile the budget. That is laid out in the sub 2 in front of you. There's sort of a summary sheet. If that impacts your vote, I just want everyone to be able to look back and see what those impacts and trade-offs are. In constructing the sub 2 to offset the fee, sorry about that, everyone. Just so everyone's clear, there are no cuts to existing service or any reversals of the cuts that were restored by the Personnel and Finance Committee. There are offsets that were found in sort of the new projects that were laid out and an existing position that is vacant that we're going to attrition. So that is the order in which that will happen for consideration. Any questions on the big picture here? Okay, if not, I'm going to move re-referral on OA 52. Is there a second? Second by Supervisor Stubbs. Is there any objection to re-referral, to reconsideration, excuse me? Okay. Seeing none, the motion before us again is OA 52. This is relates to the Huber fee that was proposed and passed by PP&J. I will move to indefinitely postpone. Is there a second? Second from Supervisor Stubbs. Just to speak to that motion briefly, when the committee met last time and took a look at this, there were sort of two fees that were in consideration. There was the increase in the electronic monitoring fee. That is a fee that is already in place. That's OA 53. That is not before us today. And I did pass out, just in reference to that, the guidance for determining indigency that we got from the Sheriff's Office that was updated this year. There's been some questions about that fee in terms of how does it impact low-wage workers, and that is going to be on the agenda for the board on Monday. Just so everybody has a chance to look through that, it identifies what the exceptions are that exempt people from the fees. So if you're receiving housing assistance, W-2, MA, any legal representation based on indigency, if you have a child that receives free and reduced price lunch, or if you're under 150% of the federal poverty level, that's waived. And minimum wage is about 133% of the federal poverty level. If you're between 150 and 200% of the federal poverty level, the fee is halved. And I think 20 to 25% of the folks that are on electronic monitoring are currently being waived through that process. And my understanding of the conversations with the sheriff, we have not denied anyone access to electronic monitoring based on financial hardship. Is that correct, Sheriff?
That's correct.
Okay. So that's just really more for background, but I want people to have access to that. The Huber fee was the new fee that was proposed. It was the $5 fee, essentially for folks that have Huber privileges but weren't exercising them. They weren't working, they weren't volunteering, they weren't seeking medical treatment, child care, or any of the other exemptions for participating in jail run programs. I think there was some consternation in the committee about that last time, and it really, with regards, I think Supervisor Stubbs, you spoke very eloquently to sort of the equity agenda. I think there are important questions about incentives and engaging people in utilizing their Huber privileges, and we need to continue to explore those. But I think the sense is this is not the best way to do that. And so we're moving indefinite postponement, which will reverse that decision and then make some difficult choices to offset that, but I think important ones. So that'll conclude my comments. Does anybody else have anything they want to share with Supervisor Solberg?
Thank you. So I am going to vote for indefinite postponement, but my reasons are a little bit different. I don't necessarily see anything wrong with an incentive or a disincentive program for people that aren't participating in anything. It's not just a matter of not having a job. It was a matter of all the things that were listed off, and I think even some more. It was basically not participating in anything that would exempt you from the fee. But my issue with the fee is that I think that that $150,000 number that was attached to it is somewhat of a very much a guess and not a solid number. It wasn't clear how many, after you put in all those provisions, how many would actually still be having to pay the fee, and of those, how many would actually still we would be collecting from. And so that we don't create a budget hole, I think it's important that we reverse this for now. But I know I personally hope that PP&J really takes a hard look at this and looks at what we can do to give people an incentive to participate in some sort of program while they're serving on Huber.
Any other comments or questions? Supervisor Corrigan, can you hit your mic? So we can hear you.
I was just going to say, I've spoken to the chair of PP&J about this issue, about looking at carrots instead of sticks for getting involvement in the program. I've talked to the sheriff about it, who's very interested in working with the committee on that, and I concur with you that I think we need to kind of look at a way that we can get people engaged, and because it's not just in the county's interest, but it's in individuals' interest to be engaged, for them to be engaged. So.
Supervisor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair Purtle.
Can you hit your mic?
Sure,
So
absolutely. That's
it's at the front there.
there. Is it on?
Yep.
Can you hear me? Thank you, Chair Purtle, and to Chair Corrigan for your leadership and all of the Personnel and Finance Committee members. I appreciate you listening to our public comment that was spoken on earlier part of this week, in addition to actually looking at this issue from an equity perspective and beginning to do business differently. And that's what I'm most proud about, is that we made hard decisions. And so it goes back to show that what we're really going to do in Dane County is we're going to do what works best for our county. And we can be as creative as we need to be for what we need to be, and to think about the most vulnerable, the most disconnected, disengaged populations, but also recognize that if people are not empowered to work, something has transpired. And so wanting to have a more open conversation with our sheriff and looking at the other standing committee, PP&J, and talk about what can be a motivational aspect. Education certainly could be one of the issues why people aren't working, but not just accepting they're not working and doing it from a punitive perspective, but empowering people to gain work. And not only that, to get out of our criminal justice system and go back and be a productive citizen. So I respectfully recognize the work of Wisdom and Moses and Linda Ketchum and many of those that are in our community that have worked with this population. But most effective is the work of this committee, going back and reconsidering and doing what's best for our county and not necessarily what's best from a revenue perspective. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of indefinite postponement, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, OA 52 is indefinitely postponed in committee. So let's, I'll then move to Resolution 330, which is the operating budget. You have sub 2 in front of you. I will move, I will move reconsideration. Is there a second? Seconded by Gillis. Is there any objection to reconsideration? Seeing none, I'll then move sub 2. Is there a second to sub 2? Supervisor Corrigan will second. So substitute amendment 2, as you can kind of see laid out in front of you, basically goes back and eliminates some of the funding that was in the previous package we put together to reconcile the budget. It eliminates the $10,000 for the Sports Commission, the $2,500 for the Castle Cultural Exchange. It eliminates the additional $10,000 for the Restorative Justice Coordinator. There is still $15,000 that was in the executive's budget. That will remain, but the additional money will come out. We have to disappointingly cut the Housing Development Specialist in order to balance the budget. The grant position is just an offset as the positions slide back and forth in the budget. We'll take $10,000 out of the new money for Briar Patch. They will still get an additional $35,000. They still have $68,000 in the base coming forward. We're going to realize the full amount of the U.S. Communities contract. The original letter said it could be up to $25,000. We will capture all of that. We're going to transfer some additional money from the mediation line in Corp Council. We're going to take a little bit out of the pre-assessment tool. It'll take it down from 50 to 43, but in talking with the staff, I think they're confident that we can still do the work. And then there's sort of a rounding error for $735 in the computer aid. And then the bulk of it will come from attritioning a position in Public Works. It was a sort of clerk 3 position that was reclassed to be a project manager. They've actually just hired one of their engineering positions to be a project manager who's going to assume those responsibilities. So this position is vacant and has been vacant for a year, and it's not going to be used for the purpose that it was designated. So we're going to attrition that vacant position in order to balance the budget moving forward. So it has no programming impact and no personnel impact as well. The other thing that it addresses is P&F original 14 that dealt with the bidding of contracts. Will revert to all contracts will be bid for the 2016 year in 2015 on the same schedule. So it eliminates all the changes that were discussed previously. Questions? Moved by Supervisor, well, sorry. Sorry, it's on the floor. Any discussion? Supervisor Erickson.
Just so I'm clear, so P&F 14, that's the one about bidding services or whatever.
Right, it's going to wipe out all the old existing language. We're going to go back to the original schedule. All contracts will be bid in the 15 on the normal schedule for 16. There will be no changes in 15. That be clear?
Yep.
Supervisor Solberg.
And just for clarification, that means that they all will be bid, we're not going to be sole sourcing or waiting on any of them.
Right, it's possible there might be only one respondent to an
That's
RFP,
possible,
and they would come to the committee then, but they'll all at least be put out for bid.
Okay.
Okay? Questions, discussion? Supervisor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair Purtle. I want to thank our County Board Chair Corrigan for revisiting P&F 14. Thank you for her leadership and adjusting, amending, but recognizing that 2016 contract year is a better term. So thank you, Chair Corrigan, for the amendment.
Anything else? All those in favor of sub 2 say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? So sub 2 to the operating budget will pass. We need to take up a sub 2 as well on the capital budget. There's one small change in the capital budget, and that is essentially, so is there a motion to reconsider the capital budget? I'll move it, seconded by Gillis. Any objection? Seeing none, I'll move sub 2. Is there a second? Supervisor Erickson. On the substitute amendment, it's just a small change in the housing area. Because we're not going to identify a lead staff person, we're going to go back to the staffing plan that was in place before. So it's going to draw from the Workforce and Economic Development Office, DOA, senior staff across the county departments, and then engagement with the Housing Authority and other folks. And what this does is it adds some kind of timelines and benchmarks to when we want the RFPs developed, the stakeholder outreach that needs to happen, when does it actually need to go out for bid, and those pieces, so that we can, now that we don't have a clear position that's going to lead this, the county exec's office and DOA have been great about reallocating some resources to make this work happen, and this sort of lays a timeline out for doing that work. But technically it's in the capital budget, so it has to be amended there. Questions? Okay. No, sorry, Supervisor Stubbs.
Yes, my question is, would at any point we receive a report back to the county board as a whole? I noticed that the reporting is going back to Health and Human Needs, but is it going to be at any point presented to us as a board as a whole? And if so,
Yeah, the results, if the results of the RFP, bring forward a project, just like the Roth Street and Packard Avenue and others, there'll be a resolution by the board for the agreements that kind of make that package. So that's when the board and this committee would have us look at it.
Other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of sub 2 to the capital budget, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That will pass. And on a technical item, I will move to reconsider the tax levies. Is there a second? Second from Supervisor Erickson. I'll move sub 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Solberg. There's actually no sub 2 text in front of you. The levy stays exactly the same. We spent $2 both times, but the calculations look a little different because we moved the money around. So the net effect is still, we're taxing to the max. Questions or concerns on that? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of sub 2 say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That will pass. Those are all the items of business that are before us. I'll take a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Laughlin, and a second from Supervisor Stubbs. Thank you very much for rearranging your schedules to be here and helping us work this out. Good night.